the concept of taking an idea and first of all coming up with an idea has got, in some cases, little to do with innovation or with invention. It's got to do with the act of human creativity. And human creativity is really a cognitive, an abstract, a phenomena that really gets people driven to say, well, I've got a key problem in a certain setting and I want to solve this problem. And I've got a key discourse with a particular issue and I want to see a way in which I can either solve it or find new ways of doing it. So the outcome of a creative process or an outcome of the act of discovery, is the fact that you can then drive a process of invention. And the process of invention really is a containment of a number of different areas that you then want to play out into something that's going to be physically executed. But once you've created an invention and you want to commercialize this invention and you want to have a process of managing all of these things together, you normally then have the process of innovation. So you'll see that a lot of theories around how you should manage the process of innovation has got to do with the system of innovation, or it's got to do with the wider topics as to how you bring these various groups of people together that will act out various components of this. And once an invention has been adopted via these innovation processes and they get adopted or they get absorbed, depending on which models you're going to want to reason through, you then have an ability to say, well, yes, I could see that there was a positive or a negative effect of my ability to organize myself to produce, certain new ideas into market. So the importance to an organization is to understand that there's this external environment and there's this internal environment where you have to create the conditions under which people want to come up with new things. And you want to create an environment where these new ideas, by the time they get to an external commercial setting, that there's a place for them to be adopted. So that interplay is really, I think, the undertone of why innovation has become more and more important over time, because the way that we link this external and internal environments, is something that has become more and more complex. So modern phenomena like crowdsourcing and all of those sort of key social topics has really forced companies to move faster and to adopt certain ideas faster and to invent new things to stay relevant. Schumpeter wrote in 1942 that creative destruction, is driven, when you've got a group of companies in an environment, decide to reinvent, certain parts of that environment that later could become an industry or maybe a sector of some sort. But it's essentially the competition of these companies or these firms trying to work out where the next round of commercialization or the next benefit is going to come from that really forces organizations to look at this issue of saying that how do I take new things to market, how do I drive these new topics into something that is going to be successful. So the real key word here is around tension, is that you want the internal tension. You want tension in the people, you want tension in the business model, you want tension in the intent to achieve something great. So in the wider body of knowledge in business in general, the vision statement of a company or the mission statement of a company does not necessarily excite people to reinvent a world. It is the conditions under which they are allowed to work to achieve that higher setting or that bigger, a strategic story is where you're going to get the energy that is needed to drive this. So the importance comes in when you have one particular invention driving novelty into the market, and this novelty raises eyebrows initially, and people look at it and say, well, how could this work? And the incumbents of the time who are trying to protect what they've invented previously, trying to stop this new invention from going into a market, and in some cases we could call that, you created barriers to entry and all those related topics in the wider business bodies of knowledge. But the key thing is that this novelty is a huge topic in trying to understand how you're either going to respond to that or how you're going to drive novelty into your particular market. So the issue around impurity and the issue around error and the issue around non-conforming behavior is probably one of the crucial reasons in my mind why companies need to reinvent themselves over time. Because unless you change with an environment, it means that you have to reinvent things just to stay the same. If you're going to stay behind and you're going to button down, and it often happens during downturns where where you decide that we're going to stick to the basics. The problem is that the basics in one area is not necessarily the basics in another area. And you start separating these various ways in which companies truly compete.